Hello everyone and welcome to Shifting Tides. This is your host Mahima presenting to you once again Bill Gladstone, our guest tonight. Bill, I met him by chance and I just did not know much about him till then until he told me that he was a publisher and he had published the works of people I hugely admired all my life. People like Eckhart Tolle, Shari Arison, Dr. Laszlo, and their works, I think, have helped many millions of people around the world. So Bill was someone I could not ignore or bringing on the show. And having talked to him, I realized that he had huge transformative moments in his life as well. So I'd be very happy, and I'm looking forward and excited to interviewing him today and bring that to you all. So welcome to the show. So to begin with, I would like you to just few lines about who is Bill today.
All right. My name is William Gladstone. I'm best known as a literary agent for mind, body, spirit authors like Eckhart Tolle, Neil Donald Walsh, Barbara DeAngelis. Also for very prominent computer business leaders. We represented the individuals who created the Four Dummies book series. And I've also worked personally with people like Peter Norton, Steve Jobs. I've had the occasion to interact with Bill Gates and Larry Ellison and really almost everyone who was at the beginning of the computer revolution. And I think these are sort of interesting because they're two sides of a coin. On the one hand, the technology is really what has driven the metamorphosis, if you will, of our world culture. Unlike any other moment in history, all of humanity is truly connected through the internet. On the other hand, in many ways, humanity is more separated today than ever before.
Yes.
There's less common accepted norms.
Yes.
There's more diversity, and there's greater isolation. In part because of the technology. Absolutely. And the way technology has replaced what used to be direct face-to-face interaction. Of course, during this COVID pandemic, thank God for the technology, or we would be suffering even more.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, that I do represent a balance between sort of the practical forward movement of world civilization, while also retaining what I consider the wisdom traditions, which are reflected in the mind, body, spirit authors that I represent. So I think I'm a pretty balanced person. I have children, I have grandchildren, I enjoy material wealth. I've been very successful in my career, but I've never allowed the material to overshadow what I consider the basic human desires for community, for love, for compassion, for empathy with others. And so these are, and even our company, my company is called Waterside Productions, and our mission statement has been to help authors and publishers create and distribute books that will create a better world. So that's kind of a very small...
Excellent. Excellent.
Who I am.
Excellent. Yeah, so tell me, Bill, you've been doing this work connected to the mind, body, spirit for so many years. How has that impacted your personal growth, your personal evolution? In the sense, I'm sure, because interacting with so many people who are writing about this kind of work, so I'm sure it has made a very deep imprint on your life as well.
Well, I think it's increased my empathy and sense of generosity, because most of the people that have written in the mind, body, spirit genre, and I'm not just talking about the famous people, have really written from the heart and the soul, wanting to help others, wanting to share their experiences, and wanting to make a difference, a positive difference. So I think that seeing so many people, and it's not easy to write a book, and for some people it's very, very hard. For me personally, I'm also an author, and frankly, my clients hate it when I tell them, but I write very fluidly and easily, and it's not hard for me. But for many, many people, it is difficult to write, and it is a major commitment of time. And I've seen people, and they're not doing it for the money. And frankly, the ones that I've represented that have made the most money are the ones that really have cared the least about the money. They're really doing it to make a positive difference in the world.
Yeah. So, first of all, having come on Shifting Tides, I think it's a great honor, and I'm so glad that you're here for this interview. What does Shifting Tides as a title imply to you?
Well, Shifting Tides is, to me, because I live near the ocean, I relate it to the ocean tides. And I relate it to high tide and low tide. And tides shift. Yeah. And it's very interesting, particularly right now, ever since the pandemic's begun, of course, we have social distancing. So I've made a special effort. I've never done this before the pandemic. I print out the tide chart. Every month we have a tide chart. And I arrange my walks on the beach to always go at low tide or near low tide, so there's more space on the beach, so it's easier to practice social distancing.
Yes.
Shifting tides is exactly the same. We're shifting. We're at that moment where we're either the high tide is going to low tide or the low tide is coming to high tide. It shifts every day. In terms of humanity, depending upon your belief systems, the Mayans believed the shifting tides were 26,000 years, and we have just experienced this moment of shift in the tide according to the Mayan calendar. The previous 26,000 years, which ended on December 21st, 2012, was the end of a 26,000-year masculine energy cycle. Mm-hmm. And less than 8 years ago, we entered a feminine dominated energy cycle. This doesn't mean what many people think it means. It doesn't mean that men ruled and now women will rule. We're talking more about the energetic qualities, and women have masculine qualities, men have feminine qualities. It's about these qualities. And yes, when you think of our traditional masculine and feminine qualities, we do think more commonly men are more associated with action and with forcefulness, and women more with empathy and nurturing. And there's some degree, at least as abstracts, that we can accept this classification in terms of describing the energies. It has nothing to do with sexuality. It has nothing to do with any of the sort of pop views of what male and female is supposed to be. It's not about men are from Mars and women are from Venus or anything like that. But it is an energetic change. And for those who are sensitive, the energetic change is already observable. Not to all of us, though, and not necessarily even to me. I don't put myself in the category of being that sensitive. But according to the Mayans, there definitely was a shift in the tide, as you call it, in the energy. And, what I would just tell people is because another shift that everyone knows about, whether you live near the ocean or not, is the shift of the sun. We have a day and then we have a night. And at the moment the sun sets, unless you're staring at the sun, you're not really going to know in the first 10 seconds that there was a sunset or that the day has turned to night. Yeah. And if you look at 26,000 years, 8 years out of 26,000 is about 10 seconds of time. So you wouldn't necessarily notice this shift unless you were extremely sensitive or, were focusing on it.
True. So, looking back at your life, do you recall any defining moment in your life that really changed the course of your entire existence?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I mean, there's one incident which you and I have discussed in the past that is very related to this particular film, which is a near-death experience I had. But when you ask the question right now, I actually, and I don't know, this may be strange, think that the most important moment in terms of some shift happening within me was really, it was a pre-verbal moment. I was, I guess maybe 2 years old, maybe 3 years old. I don't know. I actually ended up speaking very, very late in life. I didn't speak coherently until I was 6 years old. And I was actually thought that I was retarded because I didn't speak. But, later we found out it was kind of the other side of the coin, very, very exceptional intellectual, mental capacity. And I found out later that Einstein actually didn't speak until he was 6 also. So in good company. But I had an incident in which, and I don't really know why this happened, but I was just sort of in my bed, or crib even, it might have been, and I envisioned the nature of infinity. And, I went to Harvard and Yale and, Piaget and all the training that you have about stages of development. A young 2 to 3 year old is not theoretically able to even conceive of something like infinity, but I actually did. And I had a very specific image of what infinity looks like. It was sort of a series of boxes. And anyway, I just say this because I wasn't really a normal child in some ways. I mean, everything else about me was normal, but my mind was not. And I also was able to multiply, triple digit numbers in my head before I could speak. I was born resonating with numbers. Numbers were kind of friends of mine. So I had this incident, and I don't know, how to describe the impact that moment had, but it certainly revealed to me as an infant, so to speak, that what we accept as our everyday reality is quite limited compared to the deeper reality around us.
Yes.
So that was an unusual moment. But the moment that is more connectable, I would say, to the viewers is when I did have a near-death experience. I was 15 years old. Okay. And I was a very normal, happy, well-adjusted child. I had an older brother. I had a younger sister. Then I had another younger brother. I was a very good athlete in school. I was very popular. At the time, I was president of my class. I was captain of actually 3 different sports. It was a small school, so it wasn't that competitive. But still, I was kind of the star. And, so I just give this background. I was the, best student in the class, the whole thing. I even was the head of the prom committee and, socially, very in crowd, I guess you would say. So I give you this background because the incident that happened was quite unusual. I had the flu. I was very sick, sick enough that my mom called the doctor. And in those days, doctors made house calls. But it was February morning, and it was kind of snowy and slushy, and the doctor wasn't making house calls that day, partly because there was a kind of mini flu epidemic, if you will, going around. It was just a lot of flu in our part of outside of New York City where I was living. And so he said, why don't you bring him in? I have a shot I've been giving. If he does have the flu, I have a shot I've been giving that is very effective and seems to knock the flu out within 48 hours. So, of course, my mom thought that would be great. So she brought me in, and he examined me, and sure enough, I had the flu, and he gave me a shot.
Okay.
Well, he said, here, sit down, gave me a chair to sit on. You just sit there for a minute or two, I'll be right back. Well, my memory of those 2 minutes was not a normal 2 minutes.
Okay.
What I remember happening was drifting to some place that was surrounded by love and light and just bliss, a bliss that is very hard to describe because it's not a human bliss. It's a bliss that goes beyond. We've all had blissful moments where everything is lined up and we're, happy and in bliss, and we could be walking on the beach or in nature and we feel bliss. And that is about as close as I can describe it. But the actual experience was beyond any of that. And I'm kind of like in heaven in a sense. And I hear this noise and I have a sense that something's wrong. And I have consciousness And I'm kind of in the corner. It's a very small examination room where I was given this shot. And this noise kind of disturbs me from this perfect bliss. And my attention goes, and I remember very precisely, oh, what is that noise? Oh, that man is upset. Oh, that man is wearing a white coat. Oh, a white coat. That man must be a doctor. Why is he upset? Oh, he's upset because that body isn't responding to him. Oh, that's my body. Wow. I better get back to my body so the doctor won't be upset. And then my next thought or memory was looking up, and this doctor, who I knew very well, face itself go from panic to more relaxed. And then he said, oh, I thought I lost you. You turned green. You had no pulse. You must have had a reaction to this shot. And then, life went on after that, and he observed me. But for me, it was a very pivotal moment. I mean, it was an experience that I had never imagined was possible. My father, in addition to being a publisher, had been a very, very prominent chemist. He worked with Urey, who won the Nobel Prize in chemistry at City College of New York. And so he was very grounded in science. And when I got home and explained the experience to him, he said, well, your oxygen was cut off. You probably had a hallucination. And, I wouldn't give this too much attention. But of course, I did give it a lot of attention. My mother was more sympathetic to the reality of the experience, but she was also more pragmatic in the sense of, well, we want you to go to Yale or Harvard or another, very prestigious school, and doing so well in school, and this isn't the kind of incident that is going to help you in any way. A lot of people would think you're very strange, and the less you say about this, the better.
Yeah. And
it took me about 2 weeks for I finally let it go, because I did talk to some of my friends about it, but most of them, they were all 15 years or 16, some of them, and they just thought, you had a strange experience, kick the ball or throw the pitch, and didn't think too much of it. And over time I kind of let it recede, and was almost semi-convinced maybe my dad was right, because my life hadn't changed, but it had changed. And I did do some risky things after that. I remember one time I jumped off a train. It wasn't moving very fast, but I can tell you, it's not a good idea to jump off of a train. Didn't get hurt, as it turned out, but it was like I was kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, thinking, well, it's not so much that I think I'm indestructible, but if something should happen, if I end up back where I was blissed out, it's not going to be such a terrible thing. So I did lose fear of death. And I'd say that's true today as well. I really, after that experience, have never feared death. It's, I don't have any desire to leave as long as I'm healthy and productive, but the other side, if you will, is blissful, at least in my experience. And, and it's interesting actually now, as I'm, as Frank Sinatra would have said, in the twilight of my life. So I think our twilight is extending 40 or 50 years, given our new technology and knowledge about nutrition and our ability to take care of ourselves. I'm seeing less difference between being here physically and not being here physically. Unfortunately, I've had many good friends pass to the other side, and there's ways in which I still feel them present, and I don't feel there's that big a difference anymore, as I did when I was in my teens. But this incident did have a profound impact on me and the way I look at life and I look at other human beings. It took me about 20 years before I integrated the experience in a way that I was comfortable both with people who were, quote, skeptics, as well as people who were more open. And it took about 20 years.
Yeah.
In certain contexts, I would share the information at a dinner, just maybe with another couple or with a business associate. We'd be having dinner and something would come up related to near death. And I would say, oh, I had a near death experience. And in the beginning, actually, I got the same reaction I got from my dad. Oh, doctors have, figured it out. The oxygen was cut off. You hallucinated. But then it became more popular to accept the reality of near-death experiences. I think Moody's book, I can't remember the exact title, Life After Life or something it was called, had a profound impact on people beginning to accept that near-death experiences were actual experiences. And now, of course, over the last 10 years, there's been hundreds of thousands of documented cases, and it is remarkable. I've, having had a near-death experience myself, I've sort of represented several books about near-death experiences. It's a topic that interests me. And in the research I've done, over 90% of the people who've had near-death experiences have had a positive impact from their experience. They've gone on to feel that they're, in some cases, being given a second, in horrific car accidents. They should have died. They didn't die, other heart attacks, a variety of situations. But the common thread has been that most of those who have had the experience have had, as I did, a positive experience and have returned fully capable and committed to helping others. Yes. Because when you've been on the other side, you see a number of things. You see that the illusion, and most people don't think of it as an illusion, but the illusion of separation is an illusion. There's a level of deeper reality in which there is one being, because it's not, we wouldn't be able to comprehend it because it's infinite. But there is actually only one thread, if you will, that encompasses all matter, all thought, all life.
So do you feel that the experience you had, the near-death experience, was contributed to you doing the work many years later, what you did? Because did it add on to catapulting you into that space?
It made my life richer and more nuanced. Okay. It's very easy in life. I mean, we were born into a family, and the family is part of a culture. And there are programs in every culture which have worked in the past. Mm-hmm. So these programs are passed along from father to son to grandson and so forth.
Yes.
And unfortunately, many of these programs become obsolete. And when I say programs, I'm talking about very basic things, what we define as success, what we define as family. And they don't necessarily go from generation to generation the way they may have gone 1,000 years ago, when the pace of change and the pace of technology was much less.
Yes.
So I think that having an appreciation for the nuanced nature of reality and the nuanced nature of society has impacted me greatly. I wake up in the morning, and not so much right now, but for about 30 years, my first thought every morning was, how am I going to save the universe today? And it was a very limited way of saving the universe, but it was, because my clients, I mean, it's kind of silly in a way, but when you're a writer, you don't really get out much in many cases. Yeah. And if you have an agent, you start relying on your agent really for moral support as well as your financial well-being. And so at least for those clients, I was saving their universe. And, I was always very effective at what I did and very open to doing things that most agents wouldn't do. I was never motivated primarily by the money. So people would sometimes come to me with projects that were real long shots, but if I liked them, and it was more liking them than liking their project, I would say, let's see what will happen. And then every morning, first it was with mail, then when the internet took over and it's all email now, it would always be, I wonder what's going to be in today's mail. And there was always something unexpected that would lead me in a direction I would have never contemplated when I woke up that morning. And that was a little bit about how the film came about. And it's a little bit about, how I've been able to lead really a blessed and extraordinary life. I've been very fortunate that I've always had good structure around me and good people around me. You need that. You can't just sort of have no plan. I've always had a plan, but then you need to be flexible with your plan. I love the John Lennon song that has the line, "Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans." I think that's very true. You need a plan, you need a direction, you need your pre-programming, but then you need to be open to
other things that happen along the way.
Yeah, and not just other things that happen, but to see the miracle that is always around you. I mean, just being alive in a human body is a miracle. If you think about what goes on to get us to where we are today, it's pretty amazing. And I know there's a lot of strife in the world right now, a lot of separation, a lot of fear, and I don't want to discount any of that. But I prefer really, whenever possible, just to focus on the positive. I think that by focusing on the positive, focusing on solutions, focusing on what is good in each human being is much better than trying to punish and correct people who have different ways of thinking and of being. You need to always protect yourself and not allow evil to overcome goodness when it's clear good and evil. And unfortunately, there are too many, places where that is clear, human trafficking and so many other horrible things that human beings are doing. But even with that, and I think this is the basis of most religions also, ultimately, every single moment is an opportunity for redemption. No matter what an individual has done, no matter what a group of individuals may have done, there's always the possibility of change.
Yeah. Perfect. If there's one message which you would like to give, which has been your biggest learning throughout your life, I mean, you shared so much, starting from your near-death experience, and even before that, when you were 2-year-old and you saw infinitum. But what is that one thing that stood strong all your life, and that's what you'd like to give off to the society, to the world?
Joy and love. Joy and love. The most important thing to be a human being or to be part of this universe is to experience joy. Insofar as we're all connected, what is the one gift you can give to the whole? Your own unique experience of joy. It's an element of joy that could not exist without you, and it contributes to the joy of the whole. And life is meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to be joyful. Yes, the actual moment of childbirth can be painful. There's other moments of life and transition which can be painful. But we didn't create, in the universal we, the universe to suffer. That's not what it's about. It's about the miracle of life. It's about aesthetics. It's about the beauty in nature. It's about the beauty in universal laws. For me, it's been mathematics. There's a beauty in mathematics. There's a reason why dust storms on other planets have patterns similar to the winds on our planet. There are universal principles at the heart of all existence. And connecting with these universal laws, connecting with the miracle of life, and accepting yourself as a being whose fundamental purpose is to experience and share joy, I think would correct 99% of the problems on our planet. If you analyze the problems on our planet, I do think that over 99% of them are man-made problems. Yes, we have hurricanes, and yes, we have, weather situations and flooding, too much of which actually right now is, man-induced, but, some of that would happen anyway. Okay, we can deal with that. But if you then examine the amount of suffering created by natural events and compare it to the amount of suffering created by human events, if you look at the tens and it may be hundreds of millions of children that are trafficked each year, if you look at the drug trade and the number of people that are murdered each year just so somebody can make some extra money and then feel guilty about it and spend it on things that don't even create real joy. I mean, it's sad. It's sad. And, from the perspective of the other side, they're pulling their hair and saying, what are we going to do? One of the reasons for the pandemic from that perspective, from the other side is, well, it was time for Mother Nature to send everyone to their rooms and tell them to think about their behavior. And that's literally what's happened. If you look at, quarantining, people have been told, stay home. And when staying home, hopefully many, and I think it is true that many have, thought about what it is to be a human being and what have they done to contribute in a positive or negative way. So I think there are some positive side effects or side benefits, if you will, to our current pandemic. Hopefully we'll come out of this in a year or maybe longer. I think that there's a lot of misinformation about, how this vaccine is going to turn everything around overnight. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to take a year or maybe even two before we return to life almost as we knew it, because it's not going back to what we knew. It's going to be different, but hopefully part of that new will also be better, that people will be kinder, people will be more attentive to the humanity within each of us. One of the things that the pandemic has done, it's eliminated at some level the insane drive for material wealth. Enough is enough. I mean, there's not that big a difference between having $5 million and having $5 billion, if you think about it. But the process of going from 5 million to 5 billion has distorted our society and our economies in ways that have had many negative consequences. We need to get back to, what really matters. How do we really define success? And I think that is happening. It's not just about who has the most toys wins. That was a saying, I think, back in the 50s and the 60s, and it's outdated. Who has had the greatest impact on helping others while maintaining their integrity? Because you need a balance there too. I mean, I'm not a big fan of people who, give everything to others and leave themselves with nothing. That's not necessarily being wise. You need to, as they tell you on the airplane when there's a problem, give yourself oxygen first before you put the oxygen on your children. So you need a balance. I think that hopefully we'll have a little bit more balance in the future. But as long as I'm here, I'm going to enjoy every moment of life that I can. And, I hope the same for everyone who watches your film.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was so wonderful having you on the show. Thank you so much. So that was Bill Gladstone. And I'm so enthused by his enthusiasm about life, his joy and happiness he finds in his every moment of his existence. And I'm sure you all must have enjoyed the same. But what it also brought home a point is that once again it showed us that your life transforms after a serious calamity. Your life purpose is revealed, or your higher consciousness is revealed only when you are at the break edge. You are at a breaking point in your life. And that happened to him when he was all of 15. So look back at your lives and see what is that one moment which turned out to be the defining moment, or it turned out to be the transformative or the aha moment, which we call it, which makes you who you are today. That's all for today. Meet you next week. Bye-bye.